This is the Vermont Asbestos Group mine on the border of Lowell and Eden, Vermont. Asbestos was discovered here in 1823 and mining operations began in 1902. A portion of Belvedere Mountain was mined in search of the mineral asbestos, used for insulation, brake pads, cement, textiles, and more. Asbestos was popular thanks to its durability and flexibility, as well as acting as an insulating and fireproof agent.
The employees had taken over the mine. They had an employee-owned operation. They'd done that in 1975. And everybody wanted to be the boss, and it didn't work out very well. So they were having a lot of internal strife. And they came to me and said, "Well, you come up and run the mine, operate the mine for us, and we need to have somebody in control." So that's what I done. I bought some stock, and we went through a transition period of the existing management and my management. There was a little conflict there, but it soon smoothed out. And I operated the mine for 15 years, from 1978 to 1993.
The United States government recognized the risk of asbestos in 1918 after Frederick Hoffman, a statistician with Prudential Insurance, issued a report claiming asbestos workers died abnormally early. By 1949, exposure to asbestos was established as a cause of lung cancer. 100 years after Hoffman's report, the safety of asbestos is still a controversial topic.
In my own personal opinion, there's no more health concerns with the chrysotile asbestos, not mine, than there is with the air in this room. I do think that other makes of asbestos, other species, chrysotile and amosite, are more harsh. The fibers got little hooks on them and stuff. So if you inhaled it, it would maybe stick in your lungs more. But the chrysotile asbestos, it comes from a serpentine formation that is very smooth and very silky. It's in the same category as the talc. We had a talc mine in Johnson. The chrysotile asbestos got lumped in with all the other asbestos products and species, and the legal system pounced on it and put a lot of companies out of business. I think it's a shame. I think it should be still mined, and the mine should be operating, and I think, but the legal system made millions and millions of dollars defending this. It would still be going today. There's plenty of ore and everything else there, but the market deteriorated.
As the debate over chrysotile asbestos grows, many people still steer to the side of caution.
Just to be clear, from our health department, from US EPA, as well as World Health Organizations, that chrysotile is considered a known carcinogen. From my perspective, how we manage it, it's still a potential hazard. It's considered a hazardous material.
On site, there are two major piles of asbestos tailings, the Eden pile and the Lowell pile. In total, there's approximately 30 million tons of asbestos tailings. These piles are steep and prone to erosion.
We received a complaint, and that was our wetlands program of a wetland that was pretty much filled with asbestos, with sediment that included asbestos tailings. And we went out there, and it was like a parking lot, still like a parking lot. So that's about a mile downstream of the smaller pile.
They built the first waste pile one way up on Belvedere Mountain, right over a tributary of brook. It just kept falling into the brook. This, you have to understand that this tailings crust, it forms a little thick crust on top as the rain and the sun and everything hits it, and it hardens up. There's no more air emissions up there. They put dosimeters around the place to check, and there's no more air emissions than there is right here.
Erosion is happening there. So even if you got a crust or not, you have erosion forces that can overcome whatever crust they can form.
Between 2010 and 2014, Environmental Resources Management Incorporated collected over 1,000 air samples at various locations on the mine site and on neighboring properties. Only 6 of these samples detected asbestos above 0.0005 fibers per cubic centimeter, the determined baseline residential risk-based value. Only 1 sample was detected above 0.01 fibers per cubic centimeter, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration action level. In 2008, the Environmental Protection Agency conducted a variety of tests on site, most notably soil samples and activity-based samples. One soil sample contained 55% asbestos. Chrysotile asbestos was found in 59 of the 66 soil samples, ranging from a trace to that 55% concentration. Soil samples also found asbestos on the neighboring property near the impacted wetland. 65 activity-based samples were taken, which ranged from non-detect to 7.47 structures per cubic centimeter. The activity-based samples mock activities that could occur on site, such as sweeping and ATV riding on the piles. From these, the highest levels were generally found in the indoor samples. Outdoor activity samples ranged from non-detect to 0.336 structures per cubic centimeter, the highest level coming from ATV riding at the upper pile. George Bassett, better known as Butch, has been the gatekeeper at the mine since 1996, 3 years after the mine shut down. He encounters people attempting to illegally enter the mine, including people on all-terrain vehicles.
Snowboarders, sightseers, you name it, I get them. Well, I used to work for a blasting company, Northern Drilling and Blasting, and they had an office in Westfield, Vermont, and they needed somebody to come up and work out of the Westfield office. We used to store our dynamite here when I worked for the blasting company, so they kind of wanted somebody to watch the magazine site. Howard wanted somebody to watch the mines, and here I am. Every well that they drill around here has got asbestos fiber in it. From what I understand, you can eat it, but you can't breathe it.
Test plots have been developed to see if a topsoil cap could prevent erosion and the generation of dust from the piles.
We have some test plots out there. They're doing okay. So it's a mixture of compost and fertilizer. This ore is rich in magnesium, and that's toxic to plants. So what our cocktail has, it has a lot of calcium. In theory, what happens is that when it rains, it leaches down the calcium, and the calcium replaces the magnesium in the growing zone.
It may not appear like a lot is going on at the site, but mitigation efforts are ongoing.
We got the EPA removals that came in 2000 and 2008, and they built a series of diversion channels and sediment basins to help slow down the erosion that's coming off the site. We were able to cut off maybe 30 acres of drainage that was going onto that pile, and it was kind of like funneling it, and it was removing material from the pile and bringing it downstream. We were able to divert that water away from the pile. And those structures are still in place today, and Howard's VAG is responsible for maintaining those.
In 2012, the towns of Eden and Lowell voted to designate the mine as a Superfund site. If designated, the towns would pay for 10% of the remediation, while the EPA would cover the remaining 90%. The EPA decided the site was eligible for the designation, not because of the asbestos, but because of the nickel and chromium in the tailings. However, the towns overwhelmingly voted against the Superfund designation.
It affected them because of, number one, they didn't think that this asbestos is an issue. And the second thing is they were concerned about having the stigma of a Superfund site, and that's going to affect their property value. So right now, unless circumstances change, I think the only way that the site can be cleaned up is Superfund or something that's similar out there. In the interim, what we're going to try to do is maintain those structures, those erosion control structures that have made a difference.
It was a great experience. I traveled all over the world selling the asbestos and run my little business I have here at the same time. I'm an old man. Somebody else is going to have to worry about it, but I turned 84 this last summer, so There should be some work done to clean it up. Tear the buildings down. They'll fall down in time. Everything folds back into the earth, you know.